Welcome to Zeros and Ones, podcast about philosophy, ancient wisdom, and the meaning of life. Here is your host, Becca Thompson.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Let's just jump right in. So, hi, welcome to the show, Zeros and Ones, as we talk about existence, philosophy, ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom, anything that is eternal. And, of course, religious groups would claim, I'm squeaking in my chair, that they know what is eternal. So yes, that comes up, but also it's just what has been eternal for us as humanity since our arrival in this place, whenever that was, which, you know, for all the things that we claim to be certain of, right? We don't know that. There can be debates till the end of time about the beginning of time, but we don't know it. That's just a fact. We are here, present. There's an elusive place about that. We were talking a little bit about proof. I'm going to be honest with you. Some of you, well, I'm always honest with you, but some of you might know that in the spring, I abruptly stopped working at my public school job. I don't know a better way to say it. I didn't want to work there anymore, and they didn't want me there anymore, and one day we came to an agreement, although it was an unplanned agreement. Boy. And since that time, I have been creating a lot of content. I shifted to teaching online and building up essentially an online classroom in the hope soon enough of making money through the mechanisms of advertising, because I don't want to charge anybody for what I'm doing, because I know that access is important, and I'm not a gatekeeper on this beautiful knowledge. That's not what I want to do, right? If you want to support my channel, I'm going to start making t-shirts or you can buy a hat. Here, I'll show you. This is my son's. Here's that, since it's on the video. I've got this hat. And my book is coming out, one, a biography of all things, which is kind of what we're talking through. But in what I was meaning to say is that because I've created so much content, I'm not entirely sure where I was talking about this, and I don't think it was on the podcast. I think it was just on a math video. And that is about proof. You know, we have so many people in the world right now who think that they know how to declare proof, and you don't. When I first started to become, as the kids say, red-pilled on things in our society, were when I tried to tell someone, this was maybe 8 or 9 years ago, 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, I tried to tell someone that their data was wrong, and that they couldn't, what they were trying to extrapolate from the data that they had was erroneous. And they got very angry and told me that was my opinion. And I didn't know this person very well. They didn't know me. And all I could think is the massive hubris that you have no idea you're talking to a statistician. Like, what are you talking about? You're wrong. But that hubris in the uncertainty of what a proof is just exposed to me how truly problematic our education system is right now. It's challenging. I think that was the beginning of the end for me in public schools, because I just thought, oh my gosh, what is this, right? So I talked about proof, and in fact, everything that we think is proven largely isn't. As you get up in mathematics, every proof requires assumptions, okay? Every proof, the beginning of every proof requires things that you're establishing just are, right? So in the larger ethos of our conversation, I'm going to establish that we are here on Earth, breathing. Hopefully we're breathing. Our hearts are beating, or you would be considered dead, so, okay. And that the human experience is all one. Like, that's the organizing principle. So that's how we're gonna go forward in general. Yeah, so we'll talk about proof more another time. But this Today's topic is going to be geometry. Now, we were talking about arithmetic, and I probably got off on many tangents. The reality is that anything mathematics is kind of my expertise. We're not talking about these things in the nuts and bolts, okay? I'm not doing math problems, right? I wasn't necessarily talking about number theory in the last episode, although I could have been, right? It's that I wanted to check, again, not number theory, although we could have gotten into number sets, but that's nuts and bolts, okay? I want to talk about what's behind it, right? It's like I'm sitting at a table right now that's made of wood, and we could talk about how to build the table, right? That would be like the nuts and bolts. But what is far more interesting to me is to look at the knot in the wood that I'm staring at right now, knowing that this table is 70 years old, and knowing that the tree that it came from is obviously older than that. And then I like to think about, well, what are these rings that I'm seeing? How old are they? Where were they made? Where was this tree planted? And then I look around the wood in my house and I think the same thing. And I want to talk about that journey, not about the nuts and bolts of building a table. Okay, so when we're talking about all these things, we're talking about the genesis, which is the word gen. Let's we're not in language right now, but that is one of my topics. But genesis is beginning, and genesis that's a word we're going to unpack. But oxygen, gen is the creation. Hydrogen, oxygen is the creation of this event that is particular to the air, right? The reason why hydrogen is called hydrogen is hydro. Hydro, what is that word in Greek? Hydro is water. It's water. So the gen is the hydro. Hydrogen creates water, and you can do that. And of course, what is our molecular structure of water? H, oxygen. Again, one of those words. But so they all mean something incredibly, like the sounds that we use are each immensely important and came from somewhere. But that is a couple episodes from now when we're going to talk about rhetoric and words. And that particular topic utterly just blew my mind and my life wide open. So our topic today is geometry. And our topic today is geometry. And as always, we're going to start with a quote. And this one is just blunt and simple and true. It's from Plato. Geometry existed before creation. Plato. And much like all is number, I agree with Pythagoras. I agree with Plato's allegory of the cave is like being the Matrix red-pilled. I'm probably going to use that phrase a lot because it's in my mind from just some things I did this weekend at my coffee. So geo means earth, and metry is, of course, meter, right? So geometry is the meter of the earth. But it speaks to something larger as well. Geometry, like number. So the first three topics, we talked about ethics, and then we went right into arithmetic, and geometry today, and the next time is going to be astronomy. And those three things are the OG of knowledge, study, philosophy, and religion. Okay, so breaking out into song is never bad, and it's early for me, but you know what? I really felt compelled to talk about this morning. I don't know why. Take it as a morning intuition, okay? So I'm going to sing for you because I love the sound of music, right? So I do this for my students, so of course I'm going to do it for us here. But you know the song, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start, right? When you read, you begin with A, B, C. When you sing, you begin with do, re, mi, right? The first three notes just happen to be do, re, mi, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Count those because music is one of our topics too. The sounds of music. But what I like to say to my students is, I have to start the song over again because I don't know the lines when I switch it. Let's start at the very beginning. And then I say, when you read, you begin with A, B, C. When you count, you begin with 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And when you measure in geometry, it happens to be point, line, plane, point, line, plane. Point, line, plane, cube, tesseract, something else I can't think of. And then you get into the infinite void that nobody knows. So point, line, plane, cube, tesseract. The tesseract, you might know, is from Madeline Ingle's books. The Wind in the Door is the second one. A Swiftly Tilting Planet is the third. What's the first? You guys know this with me, don't you? It's a trilogy, but what's the first? Wind in the Door is second. Swiftly Tilting Planet is third. Mrs. Who, Mrs. What's It? You know what I'm talking about. They travel in space-time because of the Tesseract. But let's be real for a second. Why don't you, wherever you are, because this is interactive. And I wish that we lamented paper last time because of Socrates. So in the book, it's actually interactive. It's like a workbook book. It's like a book of philosophy workbook. Okay, the biography, all things, can be coming out around Christmas. I have to finish editing it. So sit wherever you are, and I want you to think of a point. Like, what is that? In geometry, you literally just put a dot on the wall or on the board, right, and say that's the point, right? But the point is really not a point. Is nothing. It's a locus. It's a set of space with no dimension. So it's literally nothing except for a hook somewhere. It has zero dimension by definition. Okay? Zero. Nothing. It's literally just this. It could be anything, anywhere, anything, and we call it a point. You know, Brian Greene, a physicist, and Einstein did it too, talk about the universe as like a stage, right? And all things, and the ancients called this very thing the ether, and we're going to talk about that. That's in set 5. But a point would just be, you're just declaring it's going to be right there, but it has no dimension, no width, no breadth, no height, nothing. But you're declaring it into a space. And in geometry class, we put a dot on a piece of paper, but it's an idea. Okay? And then when you get a second point, and you connect them, okay, right? What do we have? Well, when we create 2 points, we now have a line. I like to tell everybody that, when you draw a line, you have just created something in infinite space. And my students look at me like, what is wrong with you? I gotta tell you, it's really sad. So when I was at Juilliard, a brilliant theater teacher, John Stix, and Michael Kahn said it too. Those are 2 titans of theater, just titans. John passed away about 10, 15 years ago, and Michael just recently retired, but he still directs at the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C. periodically. He was the head of the department when I was a student. For whatever reason, this came to me with my son this weekend, and it's coming again to me now because it's how I've drawn students in when students don't want to care, right? My phone is much more interesting than this esoteric wisdom you're talking about for a point. Is that as an actor, but as a human, right? To be interesting, you only have to be interested, okay? It's so simple and so profound. When you are fascinated by something, that draws others in without question. Have you ever watched a child discover, their toes, or the fact that they have the power to, direct the water hose, or splashing, Something so simple as like, if I whack my hand on the water, it disturbs the water. It's so beautiful to watch because it's a human being discovering the world around them. They are interested and they are interesting. The greatest evil in the world, bluntly, is that those of us who are through that stage of life, for the most part, aren't left in awe at a child discovering the human experience. That's just shockingly horrible to me. Just beyond horrible that we don't do that. Before I digress too much, I'll just say that my love of math and my wonder has drawn in a lot of kids. So I would tell them that they created a line that they were like, I said, you are a creator. You just created infinite space. And it's true. It's true. You just created an infinite space by connecting 2 points and drawing a line. Okay? Now that's the first dimension. The first. Okay? That's it. Now, if you have a third line, or third point, not on that plane of your line, right? Because you have infinite points between the 2 points on the line. But if we go off the line, and this, I also say this to students, when you talk about a line in art class, that's very different than a line in geometry, because a line in geometry actually has a definition. It's not an aesthetic. This is the thing, and it is the thing with which our entire world is based. So if you want to talk about line in art, that's fine, but that is the idea of like rules were made to be broken. You're not breaking the rules in art. You're going outside the natural, harmonious geometry of everything. And then when you know how to do that, it can be very, very beautiful if you're intentional about it, right? But if you just scribble, most people don't find that appealing. That's just, I don't know, that's another fact. But so if you have a third point, not on the line, you have, of course, and then you connect it somehow, you have a plane. Okay, a plane, not an airplane, a plane. This is where we get PlaneNet. Planet, okay? So that's like a sheet of paper, right? I mean, my table has dimensionality to it because it has depth, but a lot of people would think of it as a soft plane. If you're going to make sure that wood is even, since we're talking about making tables earlier, when you scrape it down, okay, what is that called? That's called a planer. You just sit with the word planet for a second. PlaneNet. Why did we call it that? Gaia, Earth, those are different names. Earth is an anagram. Gaia is really the word, the name, but we call it a planet. Why? A PlaneNet. Plane. So we've got 3 points, so non-collinear make a plane. Well, now we have our flat surface, and if we have a point above our piece of paper, right? That is, and we're going to be talking about this a lot, where we now have created the third dimension. And the simplest three-dimensional form is the tetrahedron. We're going to talk about that, okay? And now I would ask you, you have a cube. In fact, hold on, I've got a Rubik's Cube. So if you're listening to this on the radio, you won't be able to see this, but if you're looking at YouTube, hold on. Okay, this is a cube. This one got broken by a student. The student tried to put it back together again, but didn't quite do it right. And so it can never really be solved because just the way that things got swapped. And he broke it and he felt bad. And so I told him if he found a way to put it back together again, I would still give him an A. Because it's engineering. But at any rate, this is a three-dimensional space, right? Okay. Where do we live? What's the next dimension? We probably know this. But it's actually, we would call it time, right? Because if this thing sits on the table, which Lord knows there's a lot of stuff that sits in my house for months on end and doesn't move, like books. Or the vase I'm looking at over there, right? My piano hasn't moved in a year, right? I mean, because it's just, you leave it there, right? Did it do something? Did the object do something? Well, you might say, well, if this cube sits on my table for a very long time, right? What's going to happen to it? Now, if it's in my house, let's just think about this logically, right? If it's in my house, it might get dust on it, and dust would be the evidence. If it is outside, the colors would fade, and the fading would be the evidence. The evidence of what? Passing, right? Now let me ask you this. 2 questions. Number 1, what is the dimensionality beyond time? You're welcome. And then number 2 is, does the piece of paper, the point, and the cube, do they all coexist at the exact same moment? Yes. In the next dimension, we would consider time. So do all the levels of the dimensionality of time exist in the same moment? The answer, logically, has to be yes. And I know we don't understand that because we are in the 3rd dimension. We are navigating time, but we don't see it. Mathematically, there are infinite dimensions. Infinite. Okay? So I had another thought exercise, right? And I was saying, hold your hand above the table. Okay? Your hand is the 3rd dimension. And if you hold it there until you get annoyed, right? That exposes time. But time is not anything more than just a perfectly coexisting dimension in the now, because there is no spoon. I don't want to give away the ending, but geometry actually is the only thing that makes up our world. Geometry is the structure, and it really truly is a matrix of equilateral triangles just contorting around each other. It's really difficult to say. I know, yep. Have you ever seen a geodesic dome? When I was a kid, if you're my age, they were in playgrounds everywhere. And then I don't know why people determined, we're not going to do that anymore. Come on. They were the best. It's all made out of triangles. It's all triangles. That's what goes on. It's geometry. It's geometry. But also recognize it's also a geometry of your mind. So the 5th dimension is a tesseract, and I genuinely, immediately, so a tesseract is I should link a image of it, but it's like a cube inside of a cube that rotates in itself, like kneading bread. And those are the moments of time in a location, in a locus. So I'm here, right? But the tesseract would sort of breathe around the different moments I've been sitting here, the different moments other people have been sitting here, the moments when nobody was here, the moments when this house didn't exist, the moments when other generations ran past, the future, right? It's all geometrically, it's all already there. Geometrically and numerically. It's all already there. All of it. Okay? I cannot stress that point enough. Okay? Past, the present, the future is all happening right now. And I know this because of geometry. So if your kids are ever curious, when am I going to use this? Well, back in my day is now. In the play Rent, Jonathan Larson's lyric. That's true. It's true. There is no future and there is no past. So if you're trapped in the past or you're constantly gazing toward the future, just know you're looking at yourself. I know, please don't shoot the messenger, okay? It's true. All right, we're pretty close to time. Our next topic is going to be astronomy. I'm talking through these things not with these deep dives into the mathematics of it, right? I do that when I do my math videos with kids, right? But to help guide you into places you might look to prove this to yourself. Because as I always have said to students, if they're not paying attention, I'll say, I already know this. I'm an expert. I'm sharing it with you because I want you to be empowered the way I've been empowered. It's a beautiful thing to know something to be true. It's a beautiful thing to be free. At the very least, free in your mind, which is the only place to be free. Thank you so much, as always, for listening, for being here. I'm really grateful. It's funny, every time I listen to these, I can hear my refrigerator. I'm grateful for my tiny house. I'm grateful for the birds I hear outside. I'm grateful for my refrigerator plugging along so I don't have to get a new one. And I'm grateful for you guys coming to be a part of this. And I'm grateful my hair is growing out. That exposes the passage of time, right? Because we are living entities inside of this field. But more on that next time. All right, thank you again. If you like this, please please subscribe. The subscription actually just, and listening all the way, actually just helps me build this so that I can try to give it away for free. Plainly, like, it helps me because my goal isn't to charge people ever for this. My goal is to, like, have YouTube throw some ads in periodically, and then I get paid that way, so long as I have enough subscribers, right? And, like, there's, like, litmus tests, right? All the research a person does. But, so I really appreciate it, and thanks so much, and have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.
At the end, my mic goes dead. I apologize, but you can follow along with the math. Thank you.